Welcome back, bastards, brigands, sirens, and scoundrels, and of course, scruffy-looking nerf herders. I'm the Brigand Bob, and today we are going to do a quick and dirty review of the Primary Arms SLX RS-10. So, let's go ahead and jump into it. I have been running the Primary Arms SLX RS-10 pistol red dot for the better part of a year now. It's got at least a couple thousand rounds through it, and enough for me to have at least developed an opinion on it. There's a lot of things I like about it, but there were also some critical failures on this device that I'm going to talk about at the end. I'm going to cover the good stuff first, and then we'll go ahead and cover the things that Primary Arms probably needs to look at on the second gen version. Now, jumping right into it, I don't have any relationship with Primary Arms. Nobody gave me this. I purchased this myself. I don't have any kind of influence in the community, or rather I'm not big enough for anybody to really want to reach out to me and ask me to review their products, so I just do all of this on my own. Now, that being said, I really like Primary Arms. I like their products. I run a number of their micro red dots on AR-15, specifically on my 300 blackout builds. I run their micro red dots and I love them. I think they're fantastic. I think they make a lot of great optics, and their products in general are just top notch. That is just how I feel about Primary Arms. Generally, overall, a good opinion of the company, a good opinion of their products. So this is a pistol red dot. It is the Doctor footprint. It has a 3 MOA dot and boasts up to 40,000 hours of battery life with a CR2032 battery, running it at medium power. And I've observed that to be true. I typically run it on high power during the day, and once I get home in the evening, I power it down to about medium, because if I do need to use it in a defense situation once I'm at home, it's going to be low light because it's going to be in the evening, and I don't need that bright red dot just kind of blooming out my sight picture. So it has been running fine. I haven't had to change the battery. The battery life is solid, seems to be as advertised, so it's got that going for it. The housing seems to be pretty tough as well, as this housing has taken a beating. I am not gentle on the guns that I run. I tend to be pretty rough on them, and the accessories that go on them kind of get the same treatment, and I'm not doing that on purpose. I just tend to run them hard, and I'm not careful or gentle with them in any way, shape, or form. And the same has been true with this optic, and some of the finish has worn off for me just wearing this gun every single day as my everyday carry and running this optic every single day on my everyday carry gun. It has seen a lot of use over the past year, and that's through, winter and summer, and sweating and extreme cold and different types of clothing conditions and things of that nature. This optic has kind of gotten exposed to it all. Now, that 3 MOA dot is very crisp, especially in the daytime setting. I have observed that this has been a very clear, crisp red dot, and I see it very easily when I go to acquire my sight picture. I am able to pick it up without a problem and don't really run into any issues. And the sight and the window as well is really solid. No complaints about that. And the housing, like I said, seems to be really solid. One of the best things about this particular red dot is that it is side loaded. The battery is side loaded, so that if you need to change the battery once it finally does die, you can just simply pop the side battery out, put your CR2032 right back in there, and you'll be good to go. So that's great. I don't have to re-zero the red dot after doing that because the mount hasn't moved. That saves a lot of time and hassle. I really like that feature. I think Primary Arms got that right. So good on you, Primary Arms. Now, it is an open window optic, so you're going to run into the types of things you run into with an open window optic. If you carry conceal every day, especially in appendix configuration, which I do, then you're going to get a lot of things like just like your fine lint and dust building up in the window, which you can just like reach in and just kind of squeegee the lens with your shirt and clear out the optic window. And that, does it well enough anyway to where you don't have to really worry about it. So that's just fine, and all optics are going to really run into that that are open housing. You're going to have that issue when you're carrying concealed, especially an appendix. You're going to have sweat, dirt, lint, things of that nature just getting into it that you have to clean out periodically. So that's neither here nor there and wasn't an issue with the optic. I like that the windage and elevation adjustments were super easy to tune. It comes with a little tool in the box. You can use just about anything to turn that windage and elevation. It wasn't difficult to get it dialed in and zeroed. In fact, I was able to mostly get it zeroed at home with foresight and then dial it in on paper once I got to the range. And it has been very accurate ever since. I shoot this gun out to 50 yards and I'm able to hit steel with it, and it's a reduced steel target at that. So hitting reduced steel at 50 yards with this red dot seems to say to me that it is accurate and it maintains its zero. It hasn't lost its zero or given me any problems or shift or anything like that. So that's the good. Let's go ahead and move on to the things that I think were major issues with this red dot. The buttons on the side, the silicone button cover for the buttons just peeled off after about 6 months of hard usage and everyday wear and everyday carry. The flap first started to come off where I draw and reholster, and then eventually the whole thing just fell off, and trying to put it back on just wasn't happening. The silicone wouldn't reseat. I don't know if it was adhesive that kept it in there to begin with, or if it was just a really tight gasket fit. I don't know. What I do know is that because the buttons were not recessed, and the silicone was not inside of a recess, the flap easily caught on my clothing and my body when holstering and drawing, and that eventually caused it to peel off and ultimately come off entirely. So I simply took a piece of double-sided Gorilla Tape and stuck it over the buttons because it did expose the circuitry of the board for the optic, and that was obviously not optimal. Haven't had any failures or anything like that with it so far, so this optic still continues to run, still continues to be reliable as it were, but that is something that they could work on. I would definitely recess where the buttons are in the housing and make sure that you don't have the buttons actually sticking out to where things can catch on the silicone button covers, because that will tend to rip them off over time. That's me, that's my experience. If you're wearing it in the outside the waistband holster and you're carrying it in a duty capacity, if you're law enforcement or something to that effect, you might not have that problem. Another thing that has happened is this little tiny glass window that is where the emitter is inside of the optic has come loose. That little tiny glass window has worked loose and is kind of rattling around in there. It hasn't come out entirely, but that is the window that blocks the emitter from getting dust and debris and things of that nature inside of it. Still has not come out yet, but isn't exactly inspiring a lot of confidence as far as its ability to keep debris out and ultimately over time continue to be reliable. So that may be a deal breaker for you. I'm continuing to run this optic because even if it dies, I do have iron sights on this weapon and I can still continue to use it. But that is something to think about, especially at the price point of $199.99. This optic originally came in, it was on sale at $139.99. It was their first pistol red dot. So I want to kind of put that out there, guys. It was their first pistol red dot. It's not like they've been making pistol red dots for a long time. So that was probably bound to happen. It's not something I'm super salty about. I think overall it is a solid design. I think if they could fix the design on the buttons, and if they could fix the problem with the emitter housing and the glass that blocks the emitter from getting dust and debris in it, then I think that would be, the rest of the design would be solid. I'd also say it would be better if this was an RMR footprint and not a Doctor footprint. I'm not the biggest fan of the Doctor footprint, but on the Strike Light Slide, it doesn't matter what footprint it is. This slide will take it. So that has been my rundown of the Primary Arms SLX RS-10. I hope you got something from this video. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them in the comment section down below. If you could go ahead and hit like and subscribe, it helps the channel out a lot. And I'll go ahead and see you scruffy looking nerf herders on the next video. Thanks.